Good morning, guys. I'm out at one of the churches that I service, and I have this large Trane unit. I think it's a 5-ton, matched with a commercial unit on the inside, commercial air handler, belt driven, and it's in cooling yet. Nothing's happening, so we're going to open her guts up, see if she's got power. First thing I did was I went inside and turned it on. The fan motor came on. Obviously we have low voltage power. You see the blinking light. Contactor is pulled in here, but we have nothing taken off. So we're going to see if there's power to that contactor. If so, we're going to see if the fan motor caused the compressor to overheat. Alright guys, we have no volts here, so we're going to first get the mega ohm meter out, hook it up and see what we got, and then we'll trace it back and see what happened from there. I have one lead hooked up to the contactor, one to the unit chassis, and we are bad again. Bad again. Let's take off the crankcase heater and be hopeful, and then move on from there. Guys, I have the top off my unit here. Down here you'll see a temperature sensor right here on the discharge line. That is the switch that turns the crankcase heater on and off. I traced the crankcase heater wires back. What it is, they come up here. Here's one side of it, then they pass. The other side of the crankcase heater runs to this discharge switch, then comes back up here again. So I've disconnected that to see if that is the grounded section, and that includes the crankcase heater and the one switch. So we're going to test that now. We have our leads on the crankcase heater wire and the chassis of the unit. We have no reading, which means we are not grounded. Let's go to the compressor. We're going to go down to the compressor and take the plug off of it, since it is a, whatever they call it. We're going to call it the Copeland scroll for the heck of it. And we're going to take the plug off of it and test it right at the compressor, because that'll be our final judgment made right there. If we're good at the compressor, that means we have just a wiring short somewhere to ground more than likely, and we'll figure that out. Down the compressor, as you see, we have not doing fantastic, but also not doing bad enough to have tripped the breaker. So we're going to figure out what did trip the breaker. This one has been a little trickier. Outdoor fan motor. We're going to separate it in 3 groups. Outdoor fan motor, compressor, crankcase heater. Those are the most likely to cause a grounding issue that is not just a wire rubbing raw. Testing them separately, they seem fine. I put them back all together. We had a ground. Take off the fan motor, the ground remains. Take off the crankcase heater, the ground remains. Take off the compressor, the ground is gone. So the compressor looks to be the problem area, because we take the wiring harness off of it, and then we have our issue exposed. So I'm gonna try it one more time just to make sure, but it looks like our compressor might be dead. Definitely an interesting scenario. I could have had a bad connection when I tested the compressor. I can test it again and see, but it doesn't lie. When you take the one component off by the harness, only thing that is separated from the system is the compressor itself, and then the dead short goes away. It doesn't lie. I added the fan motor back like I said. We were fine. I added the crankcase heater back like before. Everything was fine. And now I finally put the plug back in the compressor, and she's toast. Guys, never have a compressor that had an issue. I always want to check a couple other items just to make sure there's refrigerant in the machine. I'll check and see if it's acidic here in a minute, and then we'll move on from there. I have these quick check acid tests. If it turns red, we have acid in the system. It says hold it for about 2 seconds on the line. Didn't like any oil came out of that at all. Let me double check on the liquid line. That's more like it. Just fine. Here at the interior panel, and as you see, we have a trip breaker for the 5-ton. We'll go ahead and turn that off. Up there's a trip breaker too. I don't even know what that's for. Good grief. It appears there's a trip breaker there for one of our strip heaters. There's our old duct heaters, our larger strip heater. So we could figure that out on a different day once they take the good news of their compressor dying.